Hey guys, this is James Brandon. I just wanted to do a quick video here because I got a question over at Digital Photography School, and I was having a bit of trouble answering the question because it was kind of hard to explain in text. So I thought I would try to answer it over here on video in hopes of answering the question fully, because I think I might have confused the person I was trying to help. The person in question was wondering, on their camera they had a Nikon D40X, and they wanted to know how on a camera without auto exposure bracketing are you supposed to still take an HDR image by moving your exposure up and down between all the brackets. So I tried to explain how you adjust the dial to change the shutter speed, and I think that's where things kind of started getting confusing. So what I'll do now is just switch over and start videoing the camera that I use, and I'll try to explain on the camera exactly how you would do that if you don't have the auto exposure bracketing feature. So here we go. Okay, this is my camera, and as you can see, I'm not shooting anything special over here. It's just the corner of my living room. The subject is not what's important here. I'm just trying to show how you would shoot an HDR image on a camera that doesn't have auto exposure bracketing. So what I'll do is just come up to the top of my camera here, and this is the LCD screen that shows your camera settings, and that's how I'm going to hopefully explain this in detail and actually help this this poor viewer out. As you can see here, I am in aperture value mode, AV. My ISO is 250. My shutter speed is 1/20th of a second, and my aperture is 2.8. And you can see this little dot right here. That means that I am at the proper exposure according to the camera. So normally, the reason that you'd be in aperture value mode is because you want to do you want to be able to shoot things and your aperture stay the same. That means that your depth of field isn't going to change. So if I come up here to this dial right here and dial up my aperture, that means my depth of field is going to get greater. And let's say I want to come up to 8 here. As you can see, through all of that dialing, my exposure value never changed. That means that now I am at 1/4 of a second. And that's going to be a much slower shutter speed. That's pretty much impossible to handhold, and that's why you need a tripod for so much of this HDR stuff. I could change the aperture as much as I wanted to, but the exposure value is always going to stay the same. It's going to stay just as bright as if I was at 2.8 because it's adjusting the shutter speed with it. Now, if I want to actually override what the camera wants to do and actually make this image darker, I'm going to have to change the shutter speed. So to do that, I have this other dial wheel right here, and some camera models will have this, others won't. I'm not sure about a Nikon D40. I know on the Rebel that I used to have way back when, you would have to go into the menu settings and manually change this. I'm not sure if that's the same with a D40. So what I want to do to manually make that dot come over here to -2 is I want to make my shutter speed show up, and then I'm going to dial this wheel back. And as you'll see, the darker it goes, the faster the shutter speed gets, because it's letting in less light, so it doesn't need to be open as long. And if I go over to this side to +2, then the shutter speed gets slower because it has to gather more light. So what we'd want to do to capture this this scene here is go from -2, and we will take that image, and you'll see the timer go off. Okay, and then I'll dial that up to 0 and take the same exposure again. And you can hear the shutter speed get longer if you pay attention. Now I'm going to come up here to +2 and take the same thing. All right, and you might have seen that the numbers changed there from the last time, and that's just because it's not metering off of anything specific. So, and I didn't lock the exposure in. That's no big deal. So, because this is just for an example. Now, what you want to do is check to make sure that your exposures captured all of the light in the scene. So, what I'll do is I'll pull up the image here, and I'll try to bring that down. Alright, so here's what we've got here. You want to come over to the most recent, or the darkest exposure, and this is good because you have all of the exposure information bunched up on the left here, and that means that you've captured all of the light in the scene, and or I'm sorry, you've captured all of the highlights in the scene. There's no clipping over here, which means that you haven't overexposed any part of it. And what you want to see as you scroll through the images here is this histogram start moving over to the right here. So I'll come to my middle exposure here, and let's see if we can make my camera phone exposed for that. Maybe not. But you can see here that the information is now in the middle with a little bit of clipping on the left side here. That's fine. Now we're going to move over to the brightest image, and you'll see that it's flashing because that means it's been overexposed. But that's fine because we have all of the shadow information here. You know, there's a tiny bit of clipping there in the blue and the green channels. I'm not going to worry about that right now, but you can take more exposures if needed. But that's basically it. That's how you would manually adjust your exposures if you don't have the auto exposure bracketing feature. I hope this has been helpful. Thanks.